Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 56 of the Shadow Cold podcast. We are back, and pretty much the whole crew and a stowaway is here. So, for the first time in a couple of weeks...
Wait a minute.
What?
You're talking about
You just called the Latino of the panel a stowaway?
Dude.
Cancel.
I didn't realize it till just now. I was trying to make a reference that we have a guest on the show.
His comments are not associated with anybody else.
Take that t-shirt off now, Levi.
Oh my god.
I'm embarrassed to call you my son.
Oh wow.
son.
What a way to start off the show, ladies and gentlemen. Oh god. Jeez.
What a way to start, huh?
What a way to start.
Yeah.
Take two.
With comedy on my end being done. I was trying to make a joke that he somehow snuck into our airplane and now he's an additional guest and it's cool.
Are you saying he sneaked across the board?
No.
And now you're just pouring gasoline on the fire, Levi.
Oh
God
god.
damn it.
Take two.
Oh, god damn it.
What we have here is a collaboration between
Yes.
the Shadow Cult and the Horseman podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Strong representative here.
With
My
a good
cheeks
friend
hurt
of
now.
ours.
My cheeks hurt now. Damn it, guys. And damn it, me. Okay.
Unreal.
Anyway.
Anyways,
Somebody clip that.
I bet I don't think anybody did, but I'll be shocked if
Cut
it
that.
ain't clipped.
Now it's in.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, so the joke I was trying to make is Ricky has joined us as the whole crew is back together for the first time in a few weeks. As myself, Scott, James, and never mind us, there is Walter.
Bye.
By God!
Hello.
My God.
Barbecue sauce.
Berserker.
Berserker.
Oh boy, we're off to a smashing start, aren't we, ladies and gentlemen? But anyway, so this week's episode, it's another discussion episode, and it's a big one, near and dear to myself and Ricky. Eddie Guerrero's WWF/WWE run, 2000 to 2005.
And let me say this perfectly so everyone can say it's Eduardo Gory Guerrero Llanes. Don't ask me about the Llanes. Move on.
Perfect.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gents. So I figured a good place to begin is to kind of talk a little bit about where Eddie was prior to coming over to the WWF in January 2000. So he was... oh, man. Rocky Road ice cream coming back to haunt me. So yeah, he had spent a good chunk of his career bouncing all over the place from Mexico to Japan. He had a short run in ECW, and then from about, what would you say, like late 95, early 96 through the end of 99, big time run in WCW, mostly in the cruiserweights for the most part, but had some great matches with the likes of Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrera, Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho, even some stuff with Ric Flair on
U.S.
occasion.
heavyweight champion.
Champion, Cruiserweight champion, tag champ, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did it all but the world title, unfortunately, but
Right.
It is what it is. So now let's get into a little bit about why he left WCW and came to WWF. So this all stems from at the very end of... Well, this all stems... That and also... Yeah, and Ricky, there's more...
And
But a big chunk of the reason why he decided to leave WCW, as well as a bunch of other guys, was due to the fact that Vince Russo came in the late fall of '99 from WWF, largely due to SmackDown being a thing. So he came over along with Ed Ferrara to WCW, and things as far as like booking, as far as like who was going to be champion and so on and so forth, was starting to look a little bit better for WCW. Because say what you will about Vince Russo, but he had the right plan going by giving the world title to Bret when he should have been in that picture from the get-go. And then Eddie, Malenko, Chris Benoit, and Perry Saturn were all starting to go up the card a little bit, Benoit especially. That was until Russo was put into a committee, and then Kevin Sullivan's put back into the booker spot, and they all just didn't trust Kevin Sullivan, especially Benoit. And that as well as...
why.
I wonder why.
Yeah, that's the greatest mystery in the history of the business, isn't it? Why didn't Chris Benoit trust Kevin Sullivan?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing with Eddie in WCW is that, you know, he was getting over, sort of. I mean, he had the Latino World Order, a rip-off of the NWO, which was one of the hottest things, especially as Mexican wrestling fans are having a super group up there. But again, he was mostly in the Cruiserweight division, and the Cruiserweights at the time, they didn't have the much spotlight as the guys like Hogan or guys like Bret. They wanted more attention, so, you know, they had to go somewhere that would get more attention.
Yeah, the cruiserweight division in WCW being this this enchanted thing is it's rather mythological. There were some great moments about it, but when you look at it through the thick and thin, most of those cruiserweights would get stuck in a big six-man, and it would end with Scott Norton hitting the ring and power bombing all of them and calling the match off. So, but yeah, those guys, you know, were looking for a place to highlight their talents.
Yeah, they would open the show, they get the crowd going, and then they were forgotten about. It was just disassociated.
And I don't know if it was Russo who thought of this, but why was it a fucking good idea to Ray remove his mask? Whoever created that idea can go to hell.
Idea.
That wasn't Russo. That was Kevin Nash.
It was Nash, yeah.
Well, anyway,
actually, it was Bischoff. It was Bischoff.
Whoever
Because
did it can go fuck
Bischoff wanted Ray to remove it in '97.
To be fair, though, what happened the night after Ray unmasked? Nash put him over clean. So
Yeah.
And Ray was beating all the Giants and getting a world title shot.
he was.
Yep.
Granted, I like Ray with the mask, but I can't say his run without the mask was bad. He was getting regular TV time. He was having great tag team matches, whether it be him and Kidman teaming up, or him and Eddie teaming up, or all three of them teaming up with Conan, you know, in the back. And, you know, as much as like I said, as much as we missed the mask, that era, he had some really good matches during that time without the mask.
Yeah, but still, they took the one thing that set him apart from everybody and took it away.
That's true.
You know, yeah, great matches. Yeah,
and that portion is pretty much all but forgotten about.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So it's
gotten to the point now where they still tease, they still like look at Ray without the mask as a thing of mystique.
Yep. Remember when they went on Tough Enough? I think it was the first season, Tough Enough, and took his mask off in front of the people who were the contestants on it. That was a huge thing because he hadn't done that on television. They didn't show his face on Tough Enough. They showed him taking it off, and Al Snow even said, "This is a man who his mask is sacred. He doesn't need to do this. He's doing this as a token of respect for the work you're trying to put into getting to this business." And of course, he put it back on, and then you could speak to everybody and show him. But that spoke volumes still for how important it was trying to be presented. Because as we know, the mask is sacred in Mexican wrestling culture.
Didn't he take it off on the Eddie tribute show?
He took it off when he did his seat in the back thing, the one-on-one interview. Right at the end, he had his head down, popped the chin strap, pulled the mask off, walked away. You never saw his face.
Right.
You know, he never did this to the camera. He just kept it down and moved away.
Right.
So with all that out of the way, now let's begin at the very beginning of Eddie's run. The date, January 31st, 2000, on Monday Night Raw, we see randomly at ringside, in the crowd, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn watching a match involving the New Age Outlaws, And then by the end of the match, they jumped the barricade, beat the shit out of Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, making them baby faces in the beginning. And then you fast forward a few days later on the February 3rd aired episode of SmackDown, they're dubbed the Radicals, and they're all getting tryout matches on the show. Eddie would have.
The internet was boiling mad. I remember that. I was on AOL Online as that Raw was going on. Holy cow!
AOL, damn.
Yeah,
That's
man.
something I haven't heard about in
2000,
years.
man. 21 years.
AOL and AOL Online, the message boards there, and before that, what was it, Scott? RSPW.
I think something like that. I was thinking all Vista stuff, but
Yeah.
Yeah, RSPW is the was the
Was it?
board
Okay.
back in the day.
Yep. Oh, and DeathValleyDriver.com.
Oh yes, that one I remember. I do remember Death Valley Driver. Yeah.
Well, one of those guys is Jim Cornette's producer now. So
Yes, he is.
Oh, boy.
Brian Last. Yep, that's where he comes from. He's an internet mark.
he's from that territory. Scott and I had numerous run-ins with those guys.
You more than me. I didn't really spend a whole lot of time on there.
They would go to shows and shit on the workers right there in front of complete assholes to the crowd. I should let Cornette know that.
That'd be funny.
I'm sure
So
he'll care.
on this February 3rd SmackDown, so for these trial matches, Eddie's
First impression of Eddie Guerrero in WWE.
Yeah, so he'd be teaming
you
up
only
with
have one chance to make a first good impression.
And wow.
Yeah, so it's Eddie teaming up with Perry Saturn to take on the New Age Outlaws, and for the most part, a good match between the two until Eddie decided to go for the frog splash and dislocated his elbow.
Mm-hmm.
So right off the bat,
What a way to go.
yeah.
And to think, for Eddie, who has done the frog splash a billion times, he should
Before and
already know
after.
how to do it safely instead of hurting yourself.
Well, I mean, any time you do a move, you have potential to hurt yourself. Anytime.
Well, yeah.
It just
And
was
that
one of those
was
things.
and they changed the finish because of that, and the Radicals got swept.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, that just screwed up a little plan.
Imagine Twitter in 2000.
Oh, good lord. I dread
Ooh.
about that.
No.
Hashtag Eddie Botch.
We'll be on Botchamania.
Hashtag,
Yeah, it would be.
hashtag WWF is going out of business.
Hashtag WCW. Hashtag give the book to Heyman.
Good thing Twitter, Facebook, YouTube weren't
Wasn't
around.
around
in
at the
2000s.
time, otherwise, good lord, could you imagine?
Wow.
But you still had forums that shat on Austin and Rock and said that Jeff Jarrett should have been the WWF
Yeah.
champion.
Sure.
Yep. Trust me, during the so-called good old days were the worst days ever as well. So.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Good and bad any time frame.
So after that, then we get to the next episode of Raw on February 7th when it looked like as if the Radicals were coming out to do a farewell speech, thanking Cactus Jack. And then, swerve! They betray Cactus and join the McMahon-Helmsley regime for a while.
For a while, though.
Yeah, making them
For the
all
first
heels.
time.
Yeah, for the first time.
Which creates even more internet outrage. Oh, they want Benoit right in that title picture.
So,
Never mind, Eddie was not looked at by anybody in terms of being a main eventer at this point.
Oh no.
No.
Everybody wanted to see Benoit get shot into the title picture. Eddie was not. Eddie was appreciated and admired by this group of this audience here, but nobody ever talked about putting the belt on him. They
No.
never went that far. U.S. title, Intercontinental title, in that vein, maybe. World title, no.
No. Mm-mm.
Because
so
Benoit was WCW champion.
yeah.
When they left.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as they let Eddie take some time off to get his elbow healed, when he would be back in the ring, he'd be heel, and then a storyline started. A storyline that would last pretty much the majority of 2000, where he'd be pursuing China, who at this point this is crazy, weird to think at this point, but she was aligned with Chris Jericho at this time, heading into
Mamacita.
WrestleMania. Yeah, he wanted
Uh,
her to be his mamacita.
Latino
No,
heat.
wait, Mamacita, Latino Heat.
See, perfectly
Yep.
said. Exactly.
I love that storyline because I don't know.
No, man, it's great stuff.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was some
Eddie-
entertaining shit.
I mean, Eddie with his charm and China, even though China was more of a rough person,
Stern
showing her little-
person. Yeah.
her feminine side, you know.
It changed up China. It showed a different side of China, and Eddie got to just explode with personality he had never shown before.
Yeah.
Because,
He had a character.
Yeah. Wow, a character. Oh my God. Yeah. Now you're going to get people like, oh, why the fuck did they put the belt on Eddie? He deserved the belt a year ago. That kind of shit. But you remember, Walter, there was a period of time, we'll get to this later on, but I think it was want to bring it up about Eddie as a person. There was that time frame where he got let go, and we'll get into that. He was working some independents, and Walt and I know some guys who were on some shows with Eddie when he was doing independents around the Northeast. He was so freaking humble. I mean, it's fucking Eddie Guerrero. He would always be quiet, always very nice. He'd carry his bag. Oh, guys, you want me to help you carry your bags and stuff? Legit. He would be like, can I help do this? Can I help do that? The most humble, nice guy that you had ever met. He's fucking Eddie Guerrero. So that's a little lesson for people out there. You think you're a fucking star in your hometown? Good for you. He's fucking Eddie Guerrero, and he wants to help out. What have you done?
So with this China stuff starting up, all this leads to WrestleMania 16, where we get a 6-person tag match.
No,
with-
wait, you mean WrestleMania 2000?
Fuck the 2000.
Exactly. Fuck.
So when it's actually WrestleMania 2000, it's going to be WrestleMania 16.
Right, yeah, exactly. Look to the future.
So at WrestleMania 16, we get a 6-person tag team match: Eddie, Dean, and Saturn versus China and Too Cool. Why Too Cool? I don't know. And the match itself was okay. It was an okay match at WrestleMania. Then again, this show is not looked at very fondly for a lot of people. But
19 WrestleMania.
yeah. But in this match, Eddie's team would lose to China and Too Cool. However, on the next night on Raw, Eddie seemed to get kind of a consolation prize for doing the business for China, because the next night on Raw, he gets his first championship when he defeated Chris Jericho for the European Championship. All with the help of China as she turned on Jericho, and then the romance became true. Eddie has his mamacita, man.
Mamacita.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the first Mexican American European champion. I could be wrong. I think it was the only one.
I believe so, yeah.
You're right. You're right. I can't really think.
Al Snow technically represented different cultures each time he defended that title. So I
Oh,
Oh God!
Yes.
Here we go.
Here we go.
He was from Transylvania.
Yes. Germany, Transylvania, Greece. Or Greece,
D'Lo
yes,
Brown did the
brilliant.
same
Greece was
thing.
brilliant.
Same thing in '98. Now coming out of his home in Helsinki, Finland.
Mhm.
He-
The most entertaining European title run ever.
Yeah.
My
well,
opinion. But
we love Al
yeah.
Snow.
Yes,
Yeah.
who doesn't love Al Snow? Come on. You ever follow Al Snow's Twitter feed? It is nothing but like crazy one jokes. They're fantastic.
What does
So-
everybody want?
Head. Collar
What does
and elbow.
everybody
That's what you
need?
want. You want collar and
Everybody
elbow.
need?
Head.
What does everybody want?
Ice cream.
So
Pizza.
after so
yes.
so
KFC.
And Popeyes will be nice.
so after
Crackers.
so after Eddie won the European title, then we get a new feud for Eddie. Eddie and China would eventually start feuding with Essa Rios and Lita, as all this heads into Backlash, where Eddie would defend the title against Essa Rios in a match at Backlash 2000. And this match between Essa and Eddie, good match, nothing spectacular, of course, but Eddie would retain the championship on this night. So then after we get out of the S.A. Rios stuff, then we get back against Jericho at the Insurrection UK show. We get another European title match between Eddie and Jericho. And this match was another good match. Again, nothing special. It's like you're going to see early on a lot of Eddie's matches at this point. They were good, but not great. Not yet. It would take time for the great matches to start shining through. Because after all, he's still getting his foot in the door, and the company's still trying to see how everything's going to go. And these were good proving grounds for Eddie at this point in time. But shortly after Insurrection, then we start seeing Eddie and Chyna become babyfaces, become a babyface couple on screen. And honestly, that was for the better because, Eddie being just so goofy and funny and charismatic, having a character, and Chyna getting to show a little bit more range, it was perfect to have them as a babyface couple. All this leads to Judgment Day later in the month, where Eddie would defend in a triple threat match against two of his three former Radical mates, Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn. This was a really good triple threat between these three, but of course, in the end, Eddie would retain the championship. Now we head into June, and it's King of the Ring season, and Eddie would qualify for the King of the Ring tournament by defeating Matt Hardy in the first round. Then beat Chyna, which starting to slowly weave in a little bit of tension between the two, but it wouldn't really come through until later in the summer. So then Eddie faces Val Venus in the quarterfinals at the pay-per-view. And honestly, up to this point, this was probably Eddie's best match in WWF at this point. It was a really good match between Val. Granted, short as hell, because you got a lot of other matches happening on this card. But for the time it was given, it was a really good under 10-minute match between Eddie and Val. A match in which Val Venus would win.
Can you imagine Eddie, King of the Ring?
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
With that,
Rey Latino Heat Mamacita.
Rey Guerrero. It'd be something.
Yeah.
Could have been
That would be
something.
Which would have been the great catalyst to bring in Mysterio.
Gotta put the Rey name stick for that other
King-
match. that
King
we're
v.
talking about
King.
later.
King v. King.
So after King of the Ring, we move into July, where
Walter's face. He's thinking.
he's thinking of something. What are you thinking, mister?
He's thinking of food.
I'm
Jerk
full,
chicken.
man. I'm
Jerk-
full, man. That Rasta pasta is sitting in my belly right now.
I bet it is. He's ready for a nap.
So now we move into July, where Eddie would have a one-match program against Perry Saturn for the European title at Fully Loaded, and another good match for Eddie for the title up against Saturn, although I will say it was a tad disappointing. You would have thought with a one-on-one match between Saturn and Eddie could have been a great match, but here it was just good. Not great, but just good. And Eddie would drop the belt to Perry on this night to move Eddie up the card a little bit. And what a jump he goes from the European title now into the Intercontinental title, because at SummerSlam, prior to SummerSlam, we start seeing the tension build slowly but surely between Eddie and Chyna. And here at SummerSlam, we get a first... a mixed tag match for the Intercontinental Championship, meaning whoever got the pin was awarded the title. It was Eddie and Chyna versus the illustrious team of Val Venus and Trish Stratus.
Oh, Trish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And keep in mind, Val was the Intercontinental Champion at this point. In this match, it was decent for what it was. In the end, Eddie and Chyna win the match, with Chyna getting the pin and becoming a two-time Intercontinental Champion. And now this is where the tension really starts coming into play. While Eddie said he didn't mind Chyna getting the belt, he does ask on the September 4th episode of Raw, ask Commissioner Mick Foley to be inserted into China's title defense against Kurt Angle that night, claiming he didn't want to see Kurt hurt his mamacita. So he gets put into the match. During the match, Angle knocks China out with a belt shot, and Eddie lays on top of her to revive her. That could be taken in more ways than one. So he's laying on top of China, trying to revive her. However, this resulted in Eddie accidentally pinning China to become Intercontinental Champion.
I mean, what a way to take the belt of China, and I guess some of that Latino he didn't go to waste.
It was a brilliant finish, and just the way Eddie sells it, that is just makes it.
Yeah,
It just makes it the whole thing right there. It's one of the best moments of his career, because just that freaking face that we will go on to see even more with lying, cheating, and stealing.
Yes.
So just bring it all back right to that. Like
Absolutely.
That. I didn't mean to do that, but I kind of like it.
And this was brilliantly done to protect Kurt, because he's going up into the world title picture the next month. Get the belt on Eddie and get the belt off China. So everybody wins in this situation, so to speak. Then over the next few weeks, tensions get worse and worse and worse between Eddie and China, including China becoming visibly uncomfortable with how Eddie would start to cheat in order to retain the title. Eddie also being upset at China for posing for Playboy, even trying to invade the Playboy mansion to stop the shoot. And just as it appeared that they were going to split, Eddie proposes to China. She accepts, which brings us to Unforgiven. Eddie would have an Intercontinental title defense against Rikishi. And this match, out of all the pay-per-view matches Eddie had, I feel like this was the worst out of them all, but it wasn't a terrible match. It was just average. It was just an average match between Eddie and Rikishi. And also,
You guys have chemistry, some don't.
yeah, and also the finish didn't help, as Eddie retained via DQ afterwards, so that didn't help matters. So yeah, I would say out of all of Eddie's pay-per-view matches during his time, this was the worst one. It's not bad, but it's not that good either. I don't know why. I guess just Eddie and Rikishi just didn't really click well at the time. But then after that, October 9th, on Raw, we get GTV footage of Eddie in the shower with two of Godfather's hoes, one of which being the future Victoria, claiming two mamacitas are better than one. And I love how China sells that. I was watching this moment back, and I love how she sells it. Like, she's just so crushed. Just sitting on the stairs like, what the fuck just happened? And then that leads into a bigger feud that would go on for the next month, as it would start the Radicals reuniting together against the newly reformed DX. And listen to this motley crew for DX at this point. China, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, and K-Quick. Yes, Ron Killings was a member of DX for a very short time in late 2000. All leading up to Survivor Series, where we get the Radicals versus DX in a traditional Survivor Series elimination tag match. And the match here, it was okay for what it was, with the Radicals picking up the win over DX. One other note I want to make about a couple other notes about the month of November in 2000. Eddie would drop the Intercontinental Championship to Billy Gunn on the Thanksgiving episode of SmackDown. And then, probably the most notable thing he did during the month was the one and only time we had a televised one-on-one match between Eddie Guerrero and Stone Cold Steve Austin on the November 16th SmackDown. And I'm going back and watching this match, I love how they set up, like, Eddie thought he had the ace in the hole of having the Radicals come out and help him, only to be trapped with a forklift blocking the door. And then we get the match, and it was just more segment than a match, in all honesty. So, take that for what you will. But I figured before we continue on, James, since you went through everything, what was Eddie doing, and do you have any knowledge of what he was doing house show-wise up to this point?
Oh, let me see. 2000 house shows.
We're live, Pat. We're live, folks, as you couldn't tell.
He's doing his research.
But, hey, research is key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're talking late 2000?
Yeah.
Or late 2000, he was in a lot of tag matches, a lot of six-man, some Intercontinental title defenses, his, let's see, yeah, elimination matches, him, Guerrero, him, Malenko, and Saturn against the Hardys and Lita. No, that was Armageddon. But house show-wise, yeah, just regular matches and some tags here and there, stuff like that.
Fill in the gap.
Yep. So now we get into the end of 2000, where at Rebellion, the other UK pay-per-view of the year, Eddie and Dean Malenko would team up to face Billy Gunn and Chyna in a tag team match, in a match that was okay again, and Chyna and Billy Gunn would get the win. And then, as James just said, we get to Armageddon that year, where we get a 6-person tag match, the Radicals versus Team Extreme, the Hardy Boys and Lita. And this was all mostly centered around the Dean Malenko pursuing Lita storyline, which...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, why would... I mean, I get what they were trying to give Dean a little personality, but this was not it.
They
This
just
was
made
not
Dean
it.
Malenko- They just made Dean look like a creep.
Exactly.
They're trying to make him out to be James Bond
Dean
and some kind of suave dude.
Dean Malenko and Lance Storm should be a tag team of no personality.
With
There you go.
Steve Blackman as their manager.
Mm-hmm. Team name? Plain and simple.
Oh, God.
And
The
the
no
Canadian
personality.
Canadian Tiger, Mike Lazansky.
But in this 6-person tag, the Radicals would get the win.
Good call.
And that pretty much does it for Eddie's 2000. So overall, you started off with making an impact on Raw, then dislocating his elbow, then some entertaining shit with him and Chyna, some good matches here and there. Got 2 titles out of it, European and Intercontinental titles. So I would say overall, Eddie's 2000 was a solid foundation going forward for Eddie's run.
That year
Funny
for
footing.
Eddie in the 2000s, it was a bit better than he did in WCW for the past 5 years. So it was something.
So now we head into 2001, and so James, January, not really much to report about with Eddie on television. So what was he doing house show wise up to this point?
Tag matches, 6-person tags. You'd have some Guerrero and Saturn Hardy Boys tag matches, some Guerrero, Saturn, and Terry versus Team Extreme 6-person tags. Him and Just Incredible on house shows. You know, basically just filling in the gap there.
Yep.
Early on.
Which brings us to No Way Out 2001, where Eddie would be involved in the Fatal 4-Way for the Intercontinental title against Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, and X-Pac. Here we get the first great match that Eddie was involved with. This 4-way match, which, James, you've talked about on your No Way Out 2001 episode, hell of a 4-way, especially when you look at the list of guys in this match. Eddie, Jericho, Benoit, Waltman. If you expected anything less than a great match, get out. Because this was a great 4-way.
And you could have taken Waltman out and it would have been a better match.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no disrespect to X-Pac, but I mean, when you have that stack of a lineup,
He definitely was the one that felt the
X-Pac
most
was
out
the
of
weakest
place.
character at this point.
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah.
You don't equate Waltman with those other 3 guys. You just don't.
I think the problem with Waldman is because he was he was in a similar build to those guys, but he didn't wrestle that style. Sean Waldman was more of a basic, old school type wrestler, basic psychology and such. But don't get me wrong, he did incorporate a high spot here and there, and people consider what he did in 1991 and 92 innovating. But he wasn't, Eddie and those guys. They brought forth more of a lucha libre Japanese style to this to this match, and X-Pac just kind of was the sports entertainment guy. So.
Oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love X-Pac. I'll watch him as the day is long. He just kind of stood out like a sore thumb in this match.
Mm-hmm.
Like at this point in 2001, it was just he square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
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 No, DX just kind of wore out his welcome at that point, and X-Pac just couldn't find his niche anymore.
No.
All that Attitude Era stuff was starting to wane down and not get over anymore. It was actually we're at the time where fans were starting to get tired of the Attitude Era type stuff.
Yeah.
To come to the big no when it came to the Attitude Era, which you could pretty much say killed it. And that's at WrestleMania that year.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But at the end with this four-way, Jericho would retain the Intercontinental title in this fatal four-way match. So then after that, Eddie goes back to pursuing the European Championship, leading to WrestleMania 17, where he would face Test for the title. And we talked about this match during the WrestleMania 17 episode. Good match between Eddie and Test, with the help of his radical buddies, Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn.
And the ropes.
And the ropes. Eddie Guerrero would win his second European title match, thus beginning a short-lived feud between the Radicals and Test and the Hardy Boys that would all culminate at the end of the month. On the April 26th SmackDown, Matt Hardy would beat Eddie to win the European title, and then at Backlash, we get a triple threat between Matt Hardy, Eddie, and Christian for the European title in a match that was a pretty good triple threat between these three, I would say, which Matt Hardy would end up retaining the title at the end of the night. And then shortly after this, Eddie would eventually leave the Radicals and become friends with the Hardys and Lita for a very short period of time. Then we get into May. At the beginning of the Insurrection pay-per-view, he would have an okay match against Grandmaster Sexay in a match that Eddie would win. But then we get to the ginormous elephant in the room that came in 2001 with Eddie, and that was the painkiller addiction was starting to creep up after his car accident 2 years prior, and the company would send Eddie to rehab, and to ride him out, they do this angle where he gets injured in a match against Albert. And it seemed like maybe after the rehab stuff, things were going to be better for Eddie. That was until November 9th, Eddie gets arrested for drunk driving and released from the company 3 days later.
And it's weird that you mentioned that day, November 9th, 2 days before I turned, I think I was like 5. So it's funny that for Eddie, the November month's kind of
That's
the best for
very
him.
month for him. Yeah, that's a bad juju right there.
Yeah.
And he would have 2 house show matches in the month of November. And then it was like he was beginning to possibly come back to television, but then the arrest happened, and that was it.
Gotcha.
For the time being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it was November 3rd and 4th against Funaki in Massachusetts and Connecticut. And those were his last matches.
Wow.
Yeah, up to that point. So after the release, then Eddie starts spending time, as Scott, you brought up a little bit earlier, working the Indies and also working a little bit in New Japan at this point, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, he was doing Ring of Honor. He was doing good old Jersey All Pro, ICW down
World
in New
Wrestling
York
All
City.
Stars in Australia.
Yep. He worked Low Key in a match in ICW that helped put Low Key on the map.
Yep, Elks Lodge.
Elks Lodge. Ooh, I think he worked Super Crazy in Ring of Honor.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yep,
Actually,
thank you.
I think he did a 3-way with Super Crazy and Amazing Red.
I vaguely remember him working Red too, so maybe it was. I remember seeing footage of those two in the ring together.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the SATs being so fucking jealous of Red getting in the ring with Eddie, which wasn't that often, which was kind of par for the course with the Maximos. But yeah, so he was making the independence, and he did a shoot interview with RF Video, which I have on tape, and that's when he's still trying to get himself right. And like I said, very quiet, very humble in the interview, talking about the impending divorce from Vicky that was in the process at that time. They were separated first, and they were going to be divorced. And so, yeah, life was really going down. He got himself, he was clean, though. He was born again. So he had that in his life that was kind of trying to help him, stay the straight and narrow, fine. But it wouldn't be
carried
long.
himself very well in that interview, though.
He did very well. He was funny. Telling the stories like when the Nasty Boys like got him drunk or whatever on the plane. They shaved his eyebrows, put his hand in his pants, like his dick in his hand, like out on the plane. Just doing stupid shit like that. It's typical boys. So, and
also forgot about IWA Mid-South.
Thank you. That was also yes.
Him, Punk, and Ray had an amazing triple threat.
Mm-hmm.
That's the crazy thing. We don't think a lot about IWA Mid-South.
Not anymore. No.
There's a lot of great stuff
because of Rotten.
But it's Ian Rotten. And we don't
because of Ian, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he was trying to get his life right until one faithful night.
April 1st, 2002, Eddie would make his return to the WWF by attacking Rob Van Dam, who was Intercontinental Champion at this point, or was about to be Intercontinental Champion. All this leading up to Backlash 2002, where we get the first Eddie RVD match. And you want to talk about the time he spent away from the company doing the indies definitely seemed to reform him in the ring for sure, because these two went out there and put on a really good match for the Intercontinental title, a match in which Eddie would win his second IC title. And then basically for the rest of the spring, it's him and RVD going at it back and forth over the IC title. Insurrection 2002, they'd have a rematch. Another good match. RVD, although wins by DQ. Then we get another one at Judgment Day in 2002. In a match I thought was a little bit better than the Backlash match. Another Eddie win for himself. And then we get to the end of May. I'll talk about the big one in just a moment, but on the May 27th episode of Raw, we get one of the best matches Raw had that year. Eddie, RVD, in a ladder match.
Probably one of my favorite Eddie matches, because there he just went crazy. RVD being, again, good with the ladders, being on Extreme. Eddie just being Eddie. They just sold it. Like, oh, give me more.
Nearly beating the shit out of a fan.
I was just about to say, during the match, a fan ran down, and thank God Eddie landed the way he did so gracefully. Otherwise, that could have been bad. Ooh, and that fan ought to thank the security for getting there in time before Eddie could beat the fuck out of him.
Like, pinche pendejo, sácate madre de mi ring.
Yes.
Oh, God. But in the end, RVD would get the IC title back after beating Eddie in the ladder match. But now, let's get to one of the big things that was supposed to happen for Eddie, but because of circumstance, we didn't get it. The week before the ladder match, on the May 20th episode of Raw, we get a couple of segments during that episode where Stone Cold and Deborah are out at a bar having a good time. Austin getting ready to sing karaoke, and then Eddie shows up to steal the mic like, no, I'm going to sing. And then Austin trying to keep cool until he sees Eddie again messing with ladies, and he's like, you've been annoying me all night. And then Austin turns around, beer ball to the back of Austin's head, and this was supposed to start a program between Eddie and Austin, and we got a couple weeks of stuff with them, also involving the return of Chris Benoit.
They were working house shows.
So, but of course, when Austin walked out of the company after disagreeing with Vince over Brock Lesnar and stuff, we didn't get that. But could you have imagined if we had gotten the program, we could have seen some amazing matches between Austin and Eddie.
Austin asked
that was
for
going to be King of the Ring.
Austin wanted to work with Eddie. He was like, I want Eddie. Give me fucking matches with Eddie. And he could pretty call carte blanche. He had everything he wanted. He was like, I want fucking Eddie. And
I mean, they were really good matches. And the thing I've been really interested to see, because Austin was pretty broken down at that point. We were almost towards the end of the line for him. What kind of match would those two have worked?
I was about to say that.
They would have worked a very smart match, but a very smart, very safe match for the sake of Austin. But I think the storytelling would have shown through in that.
I mean, a couple of two things that top of my head could be either steel cage or a street fight.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a street fight. Well, I mean, granted, like Austin.
Eddie doesn't have to do too much lucha libre, and Austin doesn't have to, take those kind of moves that would further damage his neck or knees or anything.
Submission matches would have been something too.
Something where they can slow it down and tell a story.
Because if I'm not mistaken, it was going to be Guerrero who cost Austin the match against Brock on that Raw.
Okay.
And that was going to set up the road to King of the Ring.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, the original plan for King of the Ring was supposed to be Eddie versus Austin in their first pay-per-view match that night. But yeah, like I think about it with Austin during this time. Yeah, he was slowly breaking down, but he was, despite having a couple of clunkers in 2002, like the stuff with Jericho at the start of the year, the stuff with Hall, Taker, and Big Show, not that good. I feel like this program with Eddie could have given Austin like one last shot in the arm to go out there and put on some great matches. Could have been brawling, but granted, the promos would have been something between these two, and we were starting to get that at the beginning of June. We were starting to get hints of that with the 1 week where we had something where Eddie, Benoit, and Flair were in the ring, and then you see on the screen Austin beating up Arn Anderson and calling out Eddie and Benoit and Flair. So that was the 1 week where the few weeks at the end of May, at the beginning of June, where we saw some of that go on. But I think back with Austin, like, yeah, this program could have given him a shot in the arm to go out there and be stone cold again. Because post-neck surgery, at least up until the beginning of 2002, he was kind of going back to doing more wrestling than brawling after neck surgery. You know, like, look at his matches with Angle, Benoit, Jericho in 2001. They were great matches. Still had a good amount of brawling, but they were more wrestling-based than what Austin was doing throughout much of the Attitude Era. But we'll never know what could have happened had it not been for circumstance. But
in some alternative universe, they're getting the best matches out there. Where's Doctor Strange when you need? Where's Doctor Strange when you need him?
I know, right? So instead, at King of the Ring, Eddie would face Ric Flair in a match in which Eddie would lose to Flair, and the match itself was again decent. But then
just something for Eddie to do.
Yeah. So then shortly after that, Eddie and Chris Benoit would start teaming up more often, beginning a small feud against the Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray and Spike, leading to a tag team elimination tables match at Vengeance. Pretty good match between the two, a match in which the Dudleys would win. Then we get into August, Eddie and Benoit would be transferred over to SmackDown. And good thing that happened, because this was the beginning of the SmackDown 6 feud. Eddie, Benoit, Edge, Ray, Angle, Chavo, all going at it for pretty much for the next 6-7 months, roughly. In on and off different matches, whether it be singles, tags, what have you. And the first bits of that we get, SummerSlam, not only with Angle and Ray, but we also get a match between Eddie Guerrero and Edge, and this would start a small one-on-one program between the two. And we get the match at SummerSlam, a really good match between these two, a match in which Edge would pick up the win.
Mm-hmm.
Then
And
we
this
go.
also helped.
Oh,
This also helped Edge become a
Yes.
single star.
yes.
It solidified more and more what he could do to eventually 11-time world champion.
Mm-hmm. So then we move into Unforgiven 2002. We get another Eddie and Edge match. And I thought this match was even better than the SummerSlam match. This was a very damn good match between these two. And this time around, Eddie would get his win back and beat Edge in this match. All culminating on the September 26th episode of SmackDown, where we get a no DQ match between Edge and Eddie. And probably the best match these two had against each other would be on this episode of SmackDown, and Edge would pick up the win, ending the one-on-one portion between Edge and Eddie. But the feud between the two overall, far from over.
Mm-hmm.
Now we move into October 2002. Eddie would align himself with his nephew Chavo to form Los Guerreros, and starting the lying, cheating, and stealing monikers that would be on Los Guerreros forever. And they would enter the 8-team tournament to crown the new WWE Tag Team Championships, aka the SmackDown Tag Team titles. They would defeat Rikishi and Mark Henry
AKA the
in
Raw
first...
Tag Team titles.
Now, yes. They would defeat Rikishi and Mark Henry in the first round before losing to Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit in the semifinals. Then we get at Rebellion 2002, Los Guerreros' first crack at the tag titles when they took on Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit in a great match. Probably one of the better matches you're ever going to see on any of them UK exclusive quote-unquote shows. But then all this leads to Survivor Series, the triple threat elimination match. Los Guerreros, Angle, Benoit, Edge, and Rey Mysterio for the SmackDown tag titles in a classic tag match. And in the end, Los Guerreros become the champs.
This was an amazing run for SmackDown in the tag team division. I mean,
Yes.
absolutely unbelievable. Just great matches.
Mm-hmm.
Just great matches throughout the whole time, honestly.
Absolutely. And then shortly thereafter, they win the belts. Due to just how popular that Eddie and Chavo were to the fans, they get turned babyface, and it was a good move on their part, because after all, seeing the skits they would do, wow, those were some of the funniest things you could have seen at that point in time.
I like the one there.
The golf segment was the funniest.
Golf was the best.
Yes, that would that.
4, 5, 6, 7. Give me 2.
Give me 2.
Give me 2.
If he hit a hole in run, he would mark 0.
Or when he like tried to hit a run, like.
I did like the pool segment though. That was fun.
Yeah.
We wanted your pool getting broken full
You don't
of water.
want you don't want to get your pool all leaky and full of water.
No,
Might get wet.
Again, that comedic timing starting to develop more.
We represent the San Juana del Nacimiento de San Jacinto Corporation.
Santa Maria. Brilliant stuff. The girls walking by, what a munch on the burrito, you know, all that stuff there. And
Good Lord.
Brilliant. Fun stuff. Heyman, don't forget Heyman's involved with this stuff too behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, Heyman green light and everything because he knew Eddie had it.
Mm-hmm. So,
And speaking of having it, then we end 2002 off with Armageddon, a one-on-one submission match between Eddie and Chris Benoit. Fucking amazing match between these two, in a match in which Benoit would pick up the win. So overall, 2002, talk about a massive step up from 2000. Like, holy shit, you start off with a great
comeback.
Hell of a comeback, coming back, getting the IC title, working a really good program with RVD. The short few-week run with Stone Cold had potential. Then the stuff with Edge was great. And then the tag team stuff, the SmackDown 6 stuff at the end of the year was fantastic stuff. So overall, Eddie's 2002, great comeback year for Eddie. And just when you thought that was good, it would start to get a little bit better as we get into 2003. And Eddie would
The
enter
run
his...
with Team Angle.
Yep.
Oh,
He would start off by entering his first ever Royal Rumble match. Hard to believe it took this long for him to get into a Royal Rumble match. He would enter at number 14, last about 16 and a half minutes before being eliminated by Booker T. But then we get to the February 6th episode of SmackDown. Los Guerreros would lose the tag team titles to Team Angle, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, thus beginning a long program between Los Guerreros and Haas and Benjamin. That would continue on into WrestleMania 19, where we get a triple threat match for the SmackDown tag titles with Team Angle defending against Los Guerreros and the team of Chris Benoit and Rhino. A pretty good match between these three teams. I feel like if it was just Los Guerreros and Team Angle, it would have been a much better match.
And to think that Benoit and Eddie were a tag team match WrestleMania 19. Wait until next year. What would have happened?
Yeah. You were going to say, James?
And to think Edge was supposed to be a part of that match before he got injured.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
so if Edge would have been in there with on Benoit's side, this could have helped it too. No, nothing against Rhino, but he definitely was the one that felt the most out of place in this match.
Yeah, it wasn't
And
at that level.
if Angle couldn't have gone, Benoit would have been in the WWE title match.
That too.
Oh, yeah. That 2003 Rumble match. Oh, man. Thinking about this with chills.
But in the end, it would be Team Angle that would pick up the win to retain the belts. Moving into another Team Angle Los Guerreros match for the belts at Backlash. Another really good match between these two teams. This time, Team Angle again retains. But then we hit a bump in the road. We head into Judgment Day this year. And originally it was supposed to be Los Guerreros versus Haas and Benjamin and a ladder match for the tag titles. However, Chavo would be out injured due to a torn bicep a few days before the pay-per-view. So Eddie's new partner, Tajiri? I guess you had to pick somebody. But hey, luckily they made the best of it, and it was for that short... It worked for that short 2-month period. And these two teams went out there and put on a hell of a ladder match with Eddie and Tajiri picking up the win and getting the belts. So we get this short-lived team with Eddie and Tajiri, and we get more entertainment out of Eddie. You know, trying to work with a Japanese guy in Tajiri with the language barrier and all that stuff. Some funny shit.
And Tajiri, I mean, being a good comical character also.
Like good comic relief in the background, yeah.
I mean, the things he did with William Rico, I mean, those were something.
And that was just an extension of what he was doing in the ECW with Mikey and the Sinister Minister. You know, he would get his little moments right there, and it would just be like, you know, it'd be like Penn and Teller. So that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, one noteworthy match during June of this year, we would see a tag match randomly between Eddie and Tajiri versus Rowdy Roddy Piper and Sean O'Hare, in which Eddie and Tajiri would pick up the win here. However, the following week, June 3rd, Eddie and Tajiri would lose the tag titles back to Haas and Benjamin, now known as the world's greatest tag team. And then afterwards, Eddie would turn heel on Tajiri and just leave him hanging. And all this, of course, is leading up to Vengeance, where around this time, we got the introduction of the WWE United States Championship, and a tournament was held to crown its first ever champion. Eddie would defeat Ultimo Dragon and Billy Gunn to get to the finals, and then we get to the match at Vengeance, Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Benoit to determine the first ever WWE US champion in this iteration. Another fucking amazing match between Eddie and Benoit.
Yeah.
And of course, with the help of Rhino, because this was during the tension between Benoit and Rhino, Eddie would become the first WWE United States champion. So that adds a fourth championship to Eddie's run in the company. And Eddie would go on and have a pretty solid run with the title throughout the rest of the summer into the early fall, even having a really good Fatal 4-Way at SummerSlam against Benoit, Tajiri, and Rhino, which made sense. And hell, even soon after, Eddie would turn babyface again. So it kind of makes you think, was it really necessary to turn Eddie heel the month before if you were just going to turn him back babyface after SummerSlam?
No.
He was Teflon at this point with the fans.
That's
the fans
true.
were going to love him no matter what.
Yeah, good call. Yeah.
Yeah.
He started working with John Cena,
Yes, all leading up to the
leading
to
to
the
the
parking lot brawl, which, holy shit, this was a fucking
one of my
amazing
favorite
fight.
SmackDown matches ever.
Yeah. And I love, like, the Cena trash talking at the beginning before Eddie shows up, and they just bludgeon each other forever. And I love the finish, where Cena looks like he's about ready to put Eddie away. Out comes Chavo making his return, smashes a fucking hubcap over Cena's face, blooding him up. Eddie picks up the win, retains the belt, and Los Guerreros are back together again. And hell, the following week, Los Guerreros would get the tag titles back from Haas and Benjamin, thus making Eddie a double champion.
Fun fact: that episode with Cena and Guerrero, I actually used that episode of SmackDown as part of a college thesis discussing violence on television. I still have it somewhere.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, watch the whole episode, notations and times, whenever like an act of violence occurred, and basically proving the point about violence being on TV and such. I can't remember the point or counterpoint I had, but I do remember using that episode.
Professor Walter, everybody.
So shortly after this, Eddie would start a program with The Big Show, and some people may look at this weird, but this was for me one of the funniest programs of Eddie's career. This short 1 month program with Big Show, all starting with a laxative laced burrito, and Big Show shitting his brains out.
Freddie,
It was a shitty story.
Eddie, tacos. What kind of tacos? Wait, I got this. Give that to Eddie.
Give that to Eddie. Oh, where's the toilet paper? Eddie kicking the door down. Oh, you son of a... Just Big Show's
And
face.
speaking of shit, that led
to the sewage truck incident.
that led to the
Oh god. I don't care. This was some fucking hilarious shit. Just Eddie and Big Show's reaction.
You know what this is? It's a pile of mierda.
So all this would lead to...
Now, what was it? Work shit or shoot shit?
It better be a work, because I think
better have been... Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I guess.
I would certainly hope they just mixed in brown food coloring into water and just sprayed it on them instead of...
milk and oatmeal.
Yeah.
Not like
Got
McMahon
the
and
fucking shit show.
not like the McMahons and Spirit Squad where Sean dropped a huge ton. Holy shit!
Shit! Don't worry, just because it's Sean, it is. Holy shit.
Luckily, I got the DVD where it's uncensored, so there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all this leads to Big Show versus Eddie for the U.S. title at No Mercy that year. And a good match between Big Show and Eddie. And I love how they always play up like the big giant versus the smaller guy. It always tells a good story, and these two put on a good match. And Big Show gets the U.S. title from Eddie on this night. Then, following No Mercy, we get to the October 23rd episode of SmackDown, where Los Guerreros would lose the tag titles to the Basham Brothers, beginning a feud between those two teams. Survivor Series, Los Guerreros would get a rematch against the Basham Brothers, and this match, decent. I don't know what it was with the Basham Brothers, but I just didn't really care for them as a team. I just thought they were mediocre at best as a team during this point.
Because they weren't a team. They were not set to be a team. In OVW, they were enemies. And all of a sudden, okay, shave your head. You look like you're twins now.
Hey Jim, I need both. I need Doug Basham and Damager both to go be a SmackDown taping. This week.
Gonna make him a tag team. It's gonna be great.
And-
Johnny, what the fuck,
Made
man?
him fucking bald headed.
You fuck, you bye. Click.
But the Bashams would end up retaining the titles at Survivor Series, and the two would keep feuding throughout the end of the year, heading into January. And also should note that during this time, we get the tension between Eddie and Chavo forming, all coming to a boiling point on... Well, before we get to that, Royal Rumble Battle Royal, Eddie picks up Kurt for a vertical suplex and just tosses him over the top rope on his feet. Eddie wins the 15-man Rumble for a shot at Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship at No Way Out, thus beginning a short program between these two that included probably up until the Money in the Bank briefcase beatbox dance stuff in 2019, some of Brock Lesnar's funniest work in his entire career, where he would come out with the guys on the guitars and stuff wearing the sombrero. 1, 2, oh,
Mariachi.
1, 2, 3, and then Eddie just comes in and just beats up everybody. But then we get the match of No Way Out. I would say, aside next to the ladder match against RVD, probably Eddie's best one-on-one match in the company up to this point. This match with Brock was a fantastic match.
And I want to say this about the comment.
And I did not see this result coming.
I want to say this.
I don't
about
think
Michael
anybody
Cole
did.
and Taz. They both sold it. They both sold Eddie. Their reactions, I felt that this was actually the genuine reaction stuff. Vince telling you what the fuck he tell you to do.
Yeah, it was more bullet points at that point. We're like, okay, just make him.
A star.
We're making Eddie here, so it's as much the physical stuff that's going to happen in the ring that Brock is going to do and Eddie's going to do. You guys are the painting. You know, you're filling in the small cracks, the small little brushes that make the whole picture better. So, and exactly that. You can hear it in Cole, you can hear it in Taz. It makes that match even better.
Absolutely. Now, the one thing some people may look down on with this match was the fact that Eddie won due to the help of Goldberg, but I look at it as this. You got Eddie, who's a much smaller guy compared to Brock. Unless something really crazy happened, when you look at it on paper, you would think Brock would win. And also, you got the stuff going on with Brock and Goldberg in the background, setting up their fucking classic at WrestleMania 20. So you needed to keep that story going. So I don't mind the way they did this. It kept the heat on Brock, gave a nod to Goldberg to build up to the match at Mania, and it gave Eddie the title. Everybody wins in this situation. And the fucking celebration, like, holy shit, yeah, like James said, I don't think any of us saw this result coming at all. We all just assumed that Brock's probably going to hold it till WrestleMania. Nope. What?
No.
Like,
what?
yeah,
I remember I watched
Levi.
this pay-per-view live, and I
This
was
is
like,
what I thought.
what?
I thought Guerrero was going to look so good, but come up just short, a la Benoit and Angle at the Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm. And for everyone,
Where it's like, he's going to look so good, and maybe he's a future main eventer, but not
Nope.
quite yet.
They just-
Because we got Brock and we got Goldberg. I thought that was going to be the title
It seemed like
match.
they were going towards like Brock. It was going to be Brock and Goldberg at WrestleMania with Goldberg, winning the title. But they really flipped the script on this one. I wonder
Because this was around the...
I wonder if their decision leaving was a part of that.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Don't deny it. It was definitely a part of it. I'm sorry, but if Brock was not leaving, he wouldn't have lost the title.
Yeah.
Well,
It
actually,
would have been
actually,
just like it would have been exactly as James said. He would have
Yeah.
came that close.
yeah. Well, actually, I was gonna
Like, he would have hit a frog splash and got 2 9/10.
It would have
Yeah.
been like what Roman and Rey Mysterio is going to be right now. Rey is that's what it's supposed to be at Hell in a Cell as the way they're building it. Roman and Rey Mysterio. We know Rey is not winning the title because Roman is red hot right now, but he's going to come up short. It'll be a great match.
Yeah.
It would have been the same
If
scenario.
they pull the trigger on Ray, it will be like a big "what the fuck did they just do?"
Which
You're gonna do that in front of no people? No.
yeah, no.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's Vince you're talking about here.
True,
Yeah,
but-
he's not gonna shit on his golden goose. He'll shit on everyone else, but he's not gonna shit on his golden goose.
no.
Roman is molten red hot right now.
White hot.
Just wait till SummerSlam. After that, okay.
Wait out longer. Jeez. Keep waiting. Keep
Why
waiting.
not? Let's wait until WrestleMania next year.
Mania against The Rock. Because Rock's
Yeah,
rumored to be coming
that's
back.
probably
It's
what they're
Dallas.
gonna do.
It's going to be Dallas. It's going to be 100,000 plus people. You need
And have him beat The
Roman
Rock.
needs to redeem himself the last time he was in that building, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, that. Ooh.
He
Yeah.
did
No.
Ray, and then he yeeted Dominic over the top rope in a
Oh.
spot
With no visible crash pad.
properly.
Yeah.
AEW, take note.
Yep.
For all the shit we give Kevin Dunn, he did that thing right.
They did it right. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Take note, a la Chris Jericho and MJF. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
we know Chris Jericho got hurt, but the fall still looks like shit.
So
and
back
I like
on.
I like the celebration that they did on SmackDown.
Yes.
The balloons. For everyone who's been behind me since the beginning, I say gracias, thank you. And for everyone who's been doubting me, well, you can kiss my culo, cabrones.
It was a great moment because let's be honest here. Like I said earlier on in the show, nobody was putting Eddie Guerrero as a champion, even at that time. It was very, out of left field.
Mhm.
It was
So-
it was like most people were thinking, myself included, what James was just talking about. It would have been a great competitive match. It would have been fantastic, but Eddie would have came up short. That's what everyone was looking at.
And either way, just the way the match would have gone, if he didn't win and came up that short, or winning, both ways, he would have been eliminated either way.
Yeah.
It was a win-win for Eddie. It was the perfect spot to put him in at that time.
Yep.
I think we probably would have gotten Angle and Eddie at WrestleMania anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether title or not. Yeah.
Right.
Which, speaking of Kurt, before I get to that, so with Eddie picking up the win here at No Way Out, Eddie would become the 11th Triple Crown champion and 6th Grand Slam champion in WWE history when he beat Brock. Just wanted to throw that in there. So, speaking of Kurt, that leads to the long program he would have with Kurt that would overarch over the next several months of 2004. We get the match at WrestleMania 20 between Eddie and Kurt. A fucking fantastic match between these two.
Mhm.
Although, would have been better had Kurt not got hurt in this match, because it was during the match, Angle re-injured his neck and would be out for quite a long while for the next few months. But in the end, Eddie picked up the win with one boot and retained the WWE Championship. And then, to put the cherry on top of a good WrestleMania, at the end of the show, after Chris Benoit won the World Heavyweight Championship, we get that great moment where they celebrate in the ring together, and it's so much more meaningful now to a degree because of the fact now that they're both no longer with us. Though Benoit down there, Eddie up there. But still, it's sad now looking back at that moment to an extent.
Somewhat tainted too.
Somewhat tainted, but still sad.
But at the
same
time, that moment, unsurpassed. At that time.
Absolutely.
That was what Scott and I called our victory day. It was like the day we all were the guys.
The real wrestling fans won that day. Our guys won.
Mhm.
The guys we had watched grow and start, Japan, England, Mexico, all those places, ECW, WCW, the guys we all supported, the Vanilla Midgets.
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin Nash. Finally got their spot. It was like, yes, we got one finally.
And and that was the thing. Those were guys that, despite what happened with Ben, we were always big followers and supporters of Eddie Guerrero. It was like, hey, out of everybody in this room, who had a Los Guerreros t-shirt? Scott.
Not me. Yeah, you did. Yeah.
So, like I said, it was a victory day for us fans. Guys who wanted work ethic, and of course we look at things a little different now. It's not like the guys who weren't champions had work ethic. Who were champions? I mean, Triple H and Shawn Michaels had a hell of a work ethic. Kurt Angle had. Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar has a hell of a work ethic.
Yep.
Yeah.
So sure. So then
You
after
bring up Triple H. I do have to say,
yes.
speaking of Triple H, Guerrero and Triple H had a hell of a match on the draft episode of Raw a week after WrestleMania. When Triple H was drafted to SmackDown, they had a WWE title match that Guerrero won by disqualification. But still, that was like, I think their one match they had one-on-one on television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now that brings up a whole other discussion. I'll save it till after we get through the next couple of months of stuff. So after that, Eddie would start a program against the newly repackaged John Bradshaw Layfield. And, man, you want to talk about something else with Bradshaw? He was on the verge of being released from the company until this new character comes about where he could just kind of be himself. And it was the best thing to happen to him because look what happened afterwards, you know?
Start at the bottom of the card and work his way up to main event, and that's where he hit that point. And it was great because with new champions on the rise, Benoit and Guerrero, that meant new adversaries on the rise too. So JBL, it was the right time for
Let's also not forget, Guerrero handpicked JBL to work with because he needed an opponent to work with. He's friends with Bradshaw. I'll work with him. He's a new character. I'll bring him up.
I'll make him a star.
I'll make him. I like Terry Funk. I can make him. I can do something special with him.
Exactly.
So now we talked about this before we went on the air that prior to a house show where they do this angle where JBL caused a kayfabe heart attack on Eddie's mother in attendance, there was really no heat prior to that with this program until that, so it gave this program something. Then we get to the match at Judgment Day, a really good match, but I'm going to say right now, this is going to be a spoiler alert for when we do top 10 bloodiest matches in WWE history. This is my number one because, oh my fucking god, the worst blade job I have ever seen in the history of the business. You know, after a brutal chair shot, Eddie went so deep he nicked an artery, and then you look at the mat, and then JBL bled buckets too. Let's not forget
that
mat. Oh my god!
It's up there. It's a top 5 for me as far as blood.
Oh yeah, it's up there.
In like all of wrestling, but I'm talking about in just WWE, the bloodiest match the company ever had. Like holy shit! It was so brutal that when the pay-per-view got released on DVD, it was rated TVMA. It was that bad. And
Guerrero bleeding took the match from really, really good to amazing.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It was great match.
Like, I thought JBL was winning the belt.
I can't think of a match at WWE at that time or before that where the blood got that extreme.
Nope.
Gosh, I really can't.
Nope.
Yeah.
Maybe
major.
I do remember a cage match with Tito Santana and Bruno and Savage and Adonis being really bloody, but I don't think it was at that level.
No. Yeah, and just a visual of the mat after the match was done with both Eddie and JBL's blood everywhere, and two of the hardest chair shots ever. First from JBL and Eddie that caused the blade job, and then the one Eddie gave to JBL at the very end of the match was fucking wicked too. Mm-hmm. And to think, right after the match was done, Eddie, right as soon as he gets backstage, goes into shock and fucking passes out and is taken to a hospital to get some transfusions to get some blood back into his system because it's like, good fucking lord.
Yeah, half your life force is on the mat right now, pal.
Yeah, and you notice a trend, and I noticed a trend. The next year at Judgment Day, you would have JBL and Cena in probably the second bloodiest match in company history. It's like, I find it interesting. 2 years in a row at a Judgment Day pay-per-view, JBL's involved in one of the bloodiest matches in company history. I just found that a little weird, but that's another topic for another time. But the feud with Eddie and JBL would continue on into the Great American Bash, which, yeah, one of the worst pay-per-views in company history, but thank God this match was on the card. Eddie and JBL in a Texas Bull Rope match, a really good match between these two. Mm-hmm. And I love the finish, where it looked like Eddie won because he touched the last turnbuckle, but SmackDown GM Kurt Angle showed a replay that JBL's shoulder touched before Eddie's hand touched, thus JBL becomes the new WWE champion. Now, before we continue, gotta address a couple things. Going back to what we were talking about with Triple H. James, you talked about this at the end of your Triple H Reign of Terror episode, where had Triple H stayed on SmackDown, I think it would have been a for sure that around this point Triple H would have gotten the belt off Eddie. If that would have been the case.
He probably would have beat him at Judgment Day.
Which leads into the second point, and it's a fact that nobody wants to admit, because people want to shit on Kevin Nash all the time. They want to say, oh, Diesel was the lowest drawing champion the company ever had. Sadly, that distinction goes to Eddie, because the mere fact that house shows during this time for SmackDown with Eddie as champion were not doing very, very good. And Eddie felt it was his fault. And also, this is around the time he was starting to feel the pressures of being the world champion, and he didn't want to end up getting stressed out and getting back into drinking and drugs again. And that's why he dropped the belt to JBL, because he felt with Houses not doing good that it was his fault, and he didn't want to get stressed out being champion anymore. So, screw it. Bradshaw's my friend. He could use the run. I'll drop it to him. And good on Eddie for being that way, but yeah, it's...
To be fair on Eddie, though, he had nobody to work with. Because Angle was out injured, Benoit was on Raw, Big Show was out injured, Undertaker, Cena, and Ray were all baby faces.
Yeah.
Brock was gone.
Yep.
So
Triple H stayed on Raw.
Yeah, so he only had one guy to work with. So.
And don't forget that Eddie did leave his mark, literally, on JBL with that belt.
Yeah. So, but the feud between Eddie and JBL wasn't done, because July 15th SmackDown, we would get the final one-on-one SmackDown match of the year between Eddie and JBL in a cage match. Another really good match between JBL and Eddie. This time around, JBL wins after interference from Kurt Angle under the El Gran Luchador mask, continuing the Eddie-Kurt feud that was still going on technically around this time. Which leads to SummerSlam. We get the rematch from WrestleMania between Eddie and Angle. While not as good as the match at WrestleMania, still a very good match between Eddie and Kurt, this time Kurt picking up the win. And the feud continued, and it would grow into a multi-man feud as Luther Reigns and Mark Jindrak would be involved, and Big Show would come back around this time and team up with Eddie to take on Angle and company. At No Mercy, Eddie would defeat Luther Reigns in a okay match, leading to Survivor Series, where Eddie would team up with Big Show, John Cena, and Rob Van Dam to take on Kurt Angle, Luther Reigns, Mark Jindrak, and Carlito in a traditional Survivor Series elimination match. And this match was... It was a pretty good traditional Survivor Series match, but in the end, Team Eddie wins with Eddie, Big Show, and Cena being the Survivor. So yeah, only RVD was the only one out for Team Eddie in this match, which I find interesting, but that's neither here nor there. Then we get to Armageddon 2004, where Eddie would have one last shot at the WWE Championship for the year. He would compete in a fatal four-way against champion JBL, along with Booker T and The Undertaker. And for a four-way, this was a great four-way match between these four, especially the little stuff with Eddie and Undertaker. We were talking about this before we went live. It's a shame we never got a Taker Eddie program. Even if it was a 1 month program, it would have been really cool to see a match between them two one-on-one on pay-per-view, especially with Deadman Taker being back, and he's kind of trying to mix in a little bit of his old school character with modern stuff. Could have been an amazing match if we had gotten it, but it just wasn't meant to be. And in the end, JBL would retain the title. And then we end 2004 with Eddie teaming with Booker T for a very brief period to go after the tag titles and being unsuccessful. So Eddie's 2004, wow. You start off with the split of Los Guerreros, then you get the title in an unexpected upset, then have two solid programs going on with Kurt and then with JBL. And then you finish the year off with the Kurt program as well as getting closure in the JBL stuff. So overall, the year started off amazing. Second half of the year, still pretty good, but it did taper a little bit. So I would say consider it a really good year for Eddie. Not great, but really good when you balance everything out. And now we get to the end of his run, 2005. Eddie would begin the year by being in only his second Royal Rumble match, where he would enter number 1, be a part of the 3-on-1 he welcome to the business kid beatdown of Daniel Puder with Chris Benoit and Hardcore Holly. Which I look back on that and considering what I know about Daniel Puder, good. Fuck him. Fuck Daniel Puder. Dickhead. But Eddie would last almost a half hour in this match, getting eliminations on Holly, Hurricane, and Booker T before being eliminated by Edge. So, solid performance in the Royal Rumble match.
But let's not forget about this Royal Rumble where he stole Ric Flair's wallet. That's
what? My wallet!
Guerrero stole my number!
Yeah, because Flair would end up coming out at number 30.
Like,
Oh.
60-10 world champion. Woo!
So all that, of course, now leads into February, where Eddie would team up with longtime friend and rival Rey Mysterio, and at No Way Out, they would defeat the Basham Brothers to win the WWE Tag Team Championships, and this would be Eddie's final title win of his career. And then all throughout heading into WrestleMania, continuing to defend the belts while having a friendly rivalry in the background while all this was going on. All leading to the opening match of WrestleMania 21, Eddie versus Rey in a rare tag champion versus tag champion match on pay-per-view. And these two put on a really good match, with Rey picking up the win, slowly beginning the tension between Eddie and Rey going forward. That would all really go into fourth gear on the April 21st episode of SmackDown, when Rey and Eddie would lose the tag titles to the new team of M&M, Johnny Nitro and Joey Mercury, following to the next week where they would get a rematch against M&M and lose after Eddie abandoned Rey. May 5th episode of SmackDown, Eddie gets attacked by Chavo and M&M before Rey would make the save, only for Eddie to attack and bloody the shit out of Rey afterwards, turning heel for the final time in his career, all leading to a match between the two at Judgment Day, and much better match in my opinion than the Mania match, but questionable finish, but Eddie would lose via DQ. But I guess you could look back and be like, okay, so he beat up Rey with the chair to continue the story, so you can understand why they would do a finish like that, because it's just only the start of this feud. Then the feud takes a turn when we start to get before we get back into the feud, ECW One Night Stand happens this year, and Eddie would have a match against Chris Benoit, and to call this match a disappointment would be an understatement.
I hardly ever I can hardly remember this match when I think about that pay-per-view. this match like does not come to mind.
Yeah.
You know, I think about the Dudleys and Tommy and Sandman,
and Dreamer,
the
Storm, Jericho,
all those other matches there. But this one, when I watch that show again, it comes on like, oh fuck, this did happen that night. And I still say that during that match, Eddie had a problem with his heart. Because you see during that match, he powders to the floor and just kind of stands there hunched over, and the camera's right on him, and you can see something is wrong. Something is definitely going wrong with him. Because the match wasn't good, timing was off, and he looks really like pale and like something is not right. And that was a big red flag, I think, that people missed.
Yeah, and you can even tell, like, after the match was over, after Benoit won, you can tell, like, Eddie was not happy with himself, and even told, and you could even see him lip to Benoit, I owe you one. Because, he wasn't happy with this match. Because when you look back, the matches these two had in the past were great fucking matches. And then this one happens, and it's not terrible, but not good either. It was just,
They never had the match in the original ECW. This was the one time ECW had Benoit versus Guerrero,
and this happened.
That's what happens. So
yeah. But now getting back on track to the Ray feud, then the feud takes a turn at the end of the month, June 30th on SmackDown. Eddie threatened to reveal a secret about Ray and his son Dominic. As the story began to involve Ray and Eddie's families, all leading to Great American Bash, where Eddie and Ray would have another match. In a match, if Eddie were to lose, he wouldn't reveal the secret. And this was another great match between these two. It's like their matches just started to get better and better as the feud went along. Ray picks up the win, however, on the following SmackDown, I lied! Dominic is not your son, Ray. I'm your father, Dominic. So they bring in the whole story of like how Ray and his wife were having trouble conceiving. So Eddie offered to help so they could adopt Dominic, which leads to the absurd custody of Dominic ladder match at SummerSlam. Now, I think we need kid on a pole, essentially. It was a good match. A lot of oh god, Ricky's dying.
I have an idea, bro.
Oh god.
El Nino on a pole.
It's a I'm trying to find the perfect word to say this. I'll get you back on that one.
Yeah. So this match, I feel like out of any ladder match in history of the company, this is easily the most overrated ladder match ever. Good match, but not great like so many people like to say.
Where the fuck is Vicky?
That was probably the best part of the match. So
almost got perfect timing with that too. That's how good that was.
So, for those who don't know or have never seen this match, so Eddie's at the top of the ladder messing with the briefcase, and what was supposed to happen was as he gets up to the top, Eddie's wife Vicky was supposed to come out and push the ladder over and cost Eddie the match. But Vicky missed her cue, so Eddie's just standing there, just fumbling with the briefcase, looking like a total moron. And then they had to makeshift something, and then Eddie, God damn it, where the fuck was Vicky?
Oh, yeah.
You can only see it on the live pay-per-view version.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, man. So they do
God
that part
damn
again.
it!
Where the fuck was Vicky? So they had to redo that spot.
Fucker!
So they redo that spot. Then Vicky comes out with her, oh, I have just fucked up face. And then we get the spot that was intended. She pushes the ladder over and holds Eddie back while Ray climbs. And Ray wins the match and gets custody of Dominic. Good match, but not great like so many people I see make it out to be.
But this was an example of long-term booking. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Ray and Dominic are the tag team champions now. So.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
They make no mention of any Dominic's dad.
Ray and Eddie's son are the
what-
tag team champions.
And what move is Dominic doing?
Right.
What is he doing?
Because it's like, okay,
Splash.
in kayfabe, in kayfabe, yeah, Ray won custody, but Dominic is still Eddie's kid.
Exactly.
In kayfabe,
It was never biological.
nothing
It was
changed.
custody. Nothing changed.
Kayfabe's dead.
Dominic is taller. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Much taller.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The
Like
eventual
he-
heel turn, you're not my real dad.
Oh,
There you go.
if they do that, oh my God, they're gonna be like,
It'd be like the
Long-term
big
booking.
long-term
Oh, yeah,
continuity.
Long-term booking.
I
Oh,
think Ray's
God.
and he's
Ray's
like,
wife is hotter
I'm
than
not
Nikki, too, isn't
Dominic Mysterio, I'm Dominic Guerrero.
Guerrero.
That would be.
Oh,
I would
geez.
love that if that happened. That would be so cool.
That'd be
Long-term
so good.
continuity WWE. Anyways.
As a father,
Send us our royalty checks.
Father who used the step ladder to communicate with his son, I can relate to. So,
Yeah, now he does. Yep.
and I'm taller than Ray.
Mhm.
I think we all are taller than Ray.
We are. Yes.
I think he's 5.
Not much of an accomplishment.
Ray's 5'6".
No. 5'6".
I'm
maybe.
5'8".
Yeah.
He's already
There you go.
5'5".
You're good. You're good.
All right, so, but despite that, the feud wasn't quite finished yet. We get the end of the feud on the September 9th episode of SmackDown, where one final time, Ray versus Eddie, this time in a steel cage. Another great match, way better than the fucking ladder match. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Marks. Way better than the
Eddie's
ladder
promo
match.
before the match, the promo he cut the week before the match. How can you beat a guy who's already lost everything? That was probably his best promo in the WWE.
Yeah.
That was so fucking good.
And Eddie finally beats Ray. He finally beat Ray. And like I said, a fucking great cage match between the two. So shortly after that, following the end of Ray versus Eddie, Eddie was now named #1 contender for Batista's World Heavyweight Championship, beginning a funny program with Eddie and Batista where Eddie would proclaim himself to be Dave's friend. Dave, of course, being well aware of how...
The two amigos.
Yeah, being well aware of Eddie's reputation, but accepted him as friend so he could keep an eye on him, like, I'm watching you, and play mind games, including the infamous food poisoning stuff.
Those segments, oh my God, the one with Eddie having a cramp and then bringing the doctor to check up on him.
Yeah.
The doctor with Joe.
And then the very next week, Eddie has his dinner, and Dave's like, "What about the food poisoning? I don't think you should eat that. You should avoid that so you don't feel bad."
Fun fact.
That was good.
That was aired in my hometown. That was the episode that was aired in my hometown.
Well, there you go.
Nice.
So, and I like how they were building this with Eddie and Dave over the coming weeks, where they would have a series of tag matches against, say, like Eminem and JBL and Christian, and Eddie would try and, in response, help Dave win the matches, all leading up to No Mercy. We get Eddie Guerrero versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship in Eddie's final pay-per-view match. Really fucking good match between these two. Like, I would have been curious to see where this little thing could have gone if it had one more match, maybe at, like, Armageddon. If that could have been something, but really good stuff between these two. Batista would win to retain. And I love the story they tell at the end of the match, foreshadowing the babyface turn that would happen pretty much right after this match. Eddie struggling like, do I use the chair? Do I cheat to win? No. And that basically set Eddie to turn babyface for the final time. And then on the following SmackDown, the babyface turn was complete. We went back to the theme he had prior to his heel turn, and coming back out on the lowrider. So it's like we got old Eddie Guerrero back, and it's going to be awesome. Then we get to the final stuff. November 11th, SmackDown. Eddie's final match against Mr. Kennedy for the chance to qualify for the SmackDown team for the Raw vs. SmackDown Survivor Series match. And a fitting way to go out with Eddie's classic lie, cheat, and steal. Taking the chair, slamming it on the mat, tossing it to Kennedy, falling down for the referee to see. Did you hit him? You're disqualified! And that was the other great thing of Eddie at this point. From Los Guerreros onward, that shtick was always so great.
The look on his face when the referee got knocked down is priceless.
That's how much over he was. He didn't have to do anything. He just look, and the crowd knew what was going to happen. He was like, "I'm in heaven now." Done.
And nobody pulls that smoking gun gimmick off better than he did. It's often replicated, but it's not perfected.
And, and to this day, it is pretty much always now attributed to Eddie. It's always a Guerrero.
You see it in rare times, but
that's how much of an impact it made.
The funniest parts of that of that is when he would get caught.
Yes.
Yeah.
But,
which was very
didn't
few and
happen
far
often.
between.
Yeah, but I want to go back to what you said about the date. You have to remember this was taped. This was how they went
taped on November 8th, I believe.
7th. 7th, I think 7 or 8, one of those two. So it was on a Tuesday, so around there, yeah.
And Eddie was originally set to be in the Survivor Series match where he would eventually team with Batista, JBL, Rey Mysterio, and Bobby Lashley. Then we hit the day. November 13th. Eddie Guerrero passed away in his hotel room in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Chavo was the first one to find him with a toothbrush in his hand, barely clinging on to life. Eddie pronounced dead upon arrival to the ambulance at only 38 years old. And I talked about this a little bit with you guys before we went live, but I'll tell it to everybody else here. On a personal note, before my brother passed away 5.5 years ago, this was the worst week of my life. Like, if you want to talk about rock bottom for me, it was this week. Not just because Eddie passed, because Eddie, one of my all-time favorites, but most of my family was in Florida. I was stuck here with an uncle who at the time was a kind of a dick. It was not a good week for me that week at all. It was rough. And at first when I heard Eddie pass, I didn't want to believe it until I saw Raw the next night on the 14th. And then it sank in. And then in reality, the feeling still hasn't sank in, but I came to that realization that night.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this was the last straw for Benoit, because we know Eddie and Benoit, they were
super close.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this was the last, I don't know, that made Chris snap. And from there on, we know what happened with Chris, and yeah.
And
Chris should have had time off after this.
He should have, and it probably would have helped. It would have helped a lot.
It would have, He should have Chris should have taken some time off, but he just kept on wrestling.
And I also should note that the night of Eddie's passing, TNA had their Genesis pay-per-view that night, and right after the pay-per-view went off the air, Team 3D and Christian Cage would stay in the ring after the show, paying tribute to Eddie with the Impact Zone that night.
There's footage of the Sandman and Steve Corino. It's on YouTube, them being in England, I think it was. They were working independents out there, and you see Sandman. It was like in the middle of a documentary they were filming somehow. And Sandman gets told a word, and he instantly goes into a panic attack and is trying to express what is going on. And he just sits back in the locker room, and him and Corino just kind of sit there and contemplate. Chris Jericho was on tour with Fozzy at the time, and I don't know if it was that night or next night or whatever. The crowd starts chanting Eddie's name during the Fozzy concert. Chris has to get off stage because he starts to break. He had to take a couple of minutes off stage there to compose himself, come back, thank the audience, and then continue the show. So it was hitting
everywhere.
And
everywhere.
when I'm in the business at this time, I'm wrestling at this time. It's 2005, and I'm wrestling for a couple of different companies. And you could feel in the locker rooms too, in independent shows, people that didn't know Eddie, the specter of him was just so big. And like Walter said, when him and Benoit won at WrestleMania 20, it was a victory for us. You know, the little guys, the indie guys, and all that stuff. And we were clamoring on that. And then in locker rooms all across the country, we would do our 10 bell salutes. We would do our little tributes to him in the ring, or whatever little detail we could. You know, you do the fake out, Latino heat spot with the chair, or that whole shit or whatever, and just little things like that.
Still paid to this day, it seems. I mean, every time I see someone, especially like someone like Sasha Banks or even
Sasha Banks, yep.
When they do a frog splash, I where that came from 100%.
Yep. And so it hit all of us in different ways at that time, and like you said, it still resonates to this day. Crowd still chants for him when they see Vicky, whether it was in WWE or in AEW, they still chant for him, and she still appreciates it. He's moved on, but
and it's funny that the legacy of Eddie is still going strong. I mean, his daughter is wrestling.
Yep,
she got married to Aiden English.
She was wrestling. She doesn't wrestle anymore, though. She doesn't wrestle anymore, though. She's in burlesque shows now, by the way.
But still, she actually wrestled for a bit. I mean, Chavo's still wrestling.
Yep.
Vicky's still doing her shit.
She's in AEW, managing Andrade apparently now. Chavo is working behind the scenes with Glow, the show that was on Netflix. He was the wrestling coordinator for that. Working with other projects too. I mean, Chavo's doing really good for himself. So good on him. And
Lucha Underground.
Lucha Underground, Lucha Labra. The Lucha Labra.
And then you look at the close friends, Ray still going and mentoring Dominic. It was a show.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the tribute episodes for Raw and SmackDown that week, and the Raw one especially. I remember I was home. I was at my aunt and uncle's house watching that Raw, and it's like I can't really go back and watch it now because it would just put me in a really sad mood, especially seeing Benoit's face.
When he breaks down.
It's like in that moment you had to feel for Chris, especially because of just how close he was.
It was a wreck.
Mm-hmm. And you also, another important thing too about the Eddie one, you get Vince. You get Vince sitting in a chair. You didn't get that with the 9/11 show or with Owen. You got that with Eddie. That
goes to
means
show you
a
how
lot.
close that they were, Vince and Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There is that footage after Eddie won the belt when Vince was hugging Eddie after winning the belt.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Showing that love too.
And I love, and the one thing I will say about with the Raw and SmackDown episodes, it's like, they put all storylines on hold. Nobody was forced to wrestle, but they all decided, you know what, the guys wanted to go out there to perform in honor of Eddie. Like Ray versus Shawn. That was an amazing match between those two, and it was all for Eddie.
Chavo and Triple H.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Triple H put him over.
Triple H and Benoit on SmackDown.
Yep.
Yes.
And also on that SmackDown, then you also had to feel for Dave because just around the time they started working, they were becoming close.
Yep.
And they were having entertaining stuff going on, working together. Where it was, whether it was Eddie as a heel or when they were both baby faces, they were really clicking.
And
then that visual. Yeah, and then the visual of
Rider.
Batista. Yeah, and the visual of Batista breaking down in front of everybody, and then plopping the title on the Low Rider.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now, before we end off, we got to talk about what was originally supposed to happen had Eddie not passed. So
rumored
or original plans. Take it for what you will. But there was a rumor that the following week, on the original idea for the November 18th episode, was to see a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship between Batista, Eddie, and Randy Orton. And rumors were Eddie was supposed to win the title here to give Batista time away to heal up a back injury. Now, the reason why it's like, I don't know what to believe. It's like a lot of guys say he should have, but Batista said in his book that no, it wasn't supposed to happen. So who honestly knows? But one thing that was pretty much given, we was going to get a program with Eddie Guerrero, Shawn Michaels down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Culminating probably at WrestleMania.
That
And it
program
could
was
have
going to
been.
start at the Survivor Series.
Yep. And it could
Like
have
the final
culminated.
two we saw with Shawn and Randy, it was going to
Yep.
be Shawn. It was probably going to be Shawn and Eddie to be the final two.
With Eddie probably getting the sole survivor moment. Probably culminating in a what could have happened could have been one of the all-time greatest WrestleMania matches, Shawn versus Eddie at 22.
Yeah, that would have been something.
Because
That
we
would've
never
been
saw
amazing.
that match ever.
No.
Nope. Never.
Well, here's the thing. Do you think Eddie would have been? Do you think Eddie was already in, despite what happened, he was already in the twilight of his career, or do you think he still had some gas left?
I would
a
say
little bit.
I would say probably another year he had some stuff left.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have been curious too, like had like saying like if he was still around through like 2007. Because he probably was one to spend more time with family and not go.
Well, I don't think he would have completely disappeared. I think he still would have, of course, been involved in some capacity.
Maybe he could have been
TNA
a
bound.
GM.
That's what I was
Yeah.
just about to say, James.
Because
I was going to say. I was
His
just
brother,
about to say.
His brother Hector was in TNA.
I was
so
just about to
he'd
say
have had it
that.
in.
Yeah, I was
Yep.
just about to say that because I bet you Eddie would have wanted to start spending more time with family and not be on the road as much. He probably would have went to TNA for a year or two. And then maybe come back for like one-off matches here and there to give a rub to somebody new before quietly riding off into the sunset. But we'll never know.
And he would have been in AEW now.
Well, you would also have probably seen Eddie. If I'm going to guess that Eddie would have gotten an injury of some kind, and that would have put him on the shelf. He'd come back and have another run. But if he did leave, maybe right 2007 or so, you would have seen him probably in Ring of Honor because there was a shit ton of talent on the rise that he could have been the perfect guy to groom that talent to come up maybe sooner than they did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
That's the thing with Eddie's influence. It stretches across more than just people doing the frog splash and paying tribute with the smoking gun spot or anything. There's a whole line of wrestlers.
Work ethic.
Particularly Latino wrestlers, obviously. You can tell Eddie's influence.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Andrade. Even Del Rio had a lot of Eddie Guerrero coming to the ring with that car there.
Yep.
Again, Andrade, you see a lot of Andrade. Naito. Tetsuya Naito just drips.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
That means in terms of moves, but the persona, just the way he carries himself. And you can say with Andrade because Andrade steals a lot of Naito's spots, but you can tell that Naito has definitely borrowed a lot of pages from Eddie Guerrero's book.
Mm-hmm. I mean, especially Andrade when he debuted in WWE, he would do he would stand on the turnbuckle just like how Eddie used to do. You know, the things that Eddie did the little things that he did as a wrestler, you know, like Walter said, a lot of the Latino wrestlers like Andrade, Alberto Del Rio, even beyond that, like people like Laredo Kid, people like Hombre Sin Miedo, people like, even to some extent, even Ray, to some extent, got some pieces of Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Eddie was big on Ray's development psychology-wise. Because way back in the beginning, he said this actually in that RF Shoot interview, that when Ray was in WCW doing the cruiserweight stuff, a lot of it was just spot. Just build, do all that stuff. Later on, he would start to develop more psychology with the spots and realize when to do it, and why to do it, instead of just do it for no reason. So Eddie was a big factor in Ray's development too, mentally.
Don't remember Hurricane Ramos Ray does in the match in WCW, in ECW, and in Mexico. They're all over the place. It's more about less is more.
And now, granted, in ECW, it's him in Psychosis, and Mexican lucha libre psychology is way different than American psychology, of course. We know that. So it's like they're going to do lucha libre as we knew it at the time as fans being introduced to it. So they're going to do the crazy shit. You know, sorry, gringos, you don't get it. So it's simple as that.
Mr. Mrs. Walmart don't get lucha libre psychology.
No. What the hell's a lucha libre? I don't get the lucha libre.
And that's when it's slowing down and less is more and storytelling emphasis comes in.
Yep. So that's what Ray needed to learn and develop, which he did, and now look at him. Yeah, just one of the best. He is one of the best of all time. Yeah, the eye.
Oh god.
Yeah. And of course, Eddie got inducted not just to one, but two Hall of Fames. WWE Hall of Fame in 07 and Triple H Hall of Fame in 08.
Yep.
Although, when was the last time he set foot in a AAA ring?
Oh,
94.
94, yeah. Was it
that? I think against the when Worlds Collide pay-per-view was his last match in AAA.
Amazing time match. Him and Art Ball against Zito Del Santo and Octagon.
Octagon, yep. One of the best.
One of the best ever, actually.
Yep.
We should talk about that show at some point.
Well, definitely, yeah, we got to do that.
The Team Heat persona and his heroism, he borrowed a lot of it from Art Ball.
Yeah.
Art Ball was the heat machine on that team. And you can tell Eddie learned a lot from Art on the essence of heeldom in terms of learning how to be a better heel. He picked up a lot of Art Ball's tactics and mannerisms and such.
Well, okay, let's look at the connection here. You had Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero. Art Barr learns from who? Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper worked with the Guerreros when he worked for LaBelle.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we talk like Chavo.
Chavo Senior. Yeah.
So look at the connection there, going way back in the early 80s to what comes to be one of the best tag teams, one of the most legendary tag teams, and legit legendary tag teams to come out of that early to mid 90s frame that never made it on any major mainstream American television. They were supposed to come to ECW. But it didn't happen that way. And so, but it's just amazing to make that connection of training and psychology and all that stuff and where it leads to. And Eddie passing that on, like we were saying, to Ray and all these other great talents.
Yep, absolutely. It's just amazing how, just going all the way back to, you said, like, the Piper and the Guerreros and such. It's pretty wild, like, how far you can trace these things back.
Roddy Piper playing La Cucaracha on the bagpipes to get the heat. To get that.
He's going to apologize by playing the Mexico national anthem.
And that's what he played.
That was the whole thing.
That was the whole thing. Mm-hmm.
Nah, I should shut up. I was going to say something else.
Oh, boy.
We understand.
The thing is, none of us were born when all that stuff was going on. Although Scott was, we should be 3.
Yeah, I'm an old guy. Remember, I'm the old fart here. So, yeah, not that I wasn't watching wrestling at the time. But this is all after the fact.
When did Piper make the Guerreros?
Oh, and don't forget that Edge became Eddie Part 2.
I would agree.
Edge got Vicky. He got Chavo. He started getting all of Eddie's spots.
Yeah.
Uncle Edgy.
He really did.
Uncle Edgy.
Oh, man.
It's true.
Yeah. Now that you say it like that, yeah. Now that you say that, yep. So, now to run through Eddie's WWE run accomplishments. One-time WWE champion. 4-time WWE Tag Team Champion, 2 reigns with Chavo, once with Tajiri, once with Rey Mysterio. 2-time Intercontinental Champion, 2-time European Champion, 1-time United States Champion, the WWE United States Championship Tournament winner of 2003, winner of the 15-man Royal Rumble match in 2004, 11th Triple Crown Champion, 6th Grand Slam Champion, and the second 2-time Grand Slam Champion, WWE Hall of Fame class of 2006. All in all, great career and a really good run. Definitely, I would say his best year of his run, I would definitely say would be 2002. Just because, like, what a comeback. To come back after going through rehab, going through his problems, going down to the indies, gets hired back, has these really good to great matches with RVD, got the short little stuff with Austin, then the SmackDown 6 stuff. Wow. But now, we ask favorite match of Eddie's WWE run, and there's a lot of really good, really great ones. But if I had to pick one match, and I'm mainly thinking one-on-one, not multi-man stuff, the one-on-one match, to me it's a toss-up between either the ladder match with RVD on Raw or the match with Brock Lesnar at No Way Out. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to give the nod just by a hair to the match against Brock at No Way Out, just because the moment right after he wins and the crowd went nuts, and just for the holy shit unexpected factor, I'm going to say my favorite match was him and Brock at No Way Out. Ricky?
I'm going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Ricky?
Yep.
You're putting me in a tough position there, but I'm going to give it to the Eddie RVD ladder match.
And and you know what? I think that's a good way to end the show. We went almost 2.5 hours, so really good stuff we went through here. So, bottom line is, may Eddie rest in peace. Like I said, that week when he passed, oh my God, up until my brother, the worst week of my life. And Eddie will always be one of my top 10 favorites of all time, especially because really good on the mic, excellent in the ring, could make you laugh, make you cry, make you angry. He could do it all. And at the end of the day, Latino Heat reigns supreme.
Viva Raza!
Yep. I was going to let you do it because I can't do it justice.
I was way better than Vince McMahon did.
Yeah.
Viva la raza!
So, a reminder of the schedule coming up for throughout the rest of summer. So, next week, we will be back for pay-per-view reviews. We will be talking Bad Blood 2004, a show I wish I could have went to see a Hell in a Cell match. Then the following week, at the end of June,
It's
we're
still
going to be...
going on to this day.
Yeah. And then at the end of the month, we're going to be doing one of the most difficult top 10 lists so far. Top 10 one-on-one Undertaker matches. And then July might change a little bit. 4 episodes are for sure. July 3rd, WCW Bash at the Beach 94. July 10th, discussion of WWE guys in TNA from the beginning to current, who did well, who didn't. Now the 17th is going to be in limbo because originally we was going to do Fully Loaded 2000, but there might be a chance that episode won't happen because there's a possibility that I might be going on vacation that weekend to Nashville, Tennessee for the SRX season finale at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, which is an old track NASCAR used to run back in the 50s through to the 80s. And they're thinking about going back there next year. So, figured I'd get a taste of it, and that could be my new go-to track for racing now. So the 17th's kind of in limbo. It's not 100% confirmed if I'm going to the race or not. It's just an idea, but keep that in mind. The week after that, top 10 best baby faces in wrestling history. And then we end July with Heatwave 1999 ECW review. And then finally August, the 7th, day before my birthday, it's the bash of my birthday, as well as a review of SummerSlam 2001. The 14th, we're going to be talking gimmick pay-per-views. Which ones were good, which ones are bad, are they needed today, are they not needed today? We're going to be going in depth about all that. August 21st, change of plans. We was originally going to do TNA Hard Justice 2008. But since they announced SummerSlam's happening Saturday night the 20th, we're going to be reviewing SummerSlam this year on the 21st. Or on the 22nd, the next day, excuse me. And then at the end of the month of August, top 10 best heels in wrestling. I got ideas going for the end of the year, but things can easily change. So that's just a little preview of what's to come for the next 8 weeks, roughly. But with all that said, it's plug time. First off, Scott.
Okay, well, you can find me, Mr. Scott, on my YouTube channel. It's Mr. Scott. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and all that stuff. And now available on It's Mr. Scott on YouTube. You can buy your official It's Mr. Scott merchandise, which Levi is sporting tonight. He's got the T-shirt right there, so you can hook that up there. And thank you very much, Levi, for buying that and showcasing it off here. Do appreciate that. So you can get that stuff there through my store now. All kinds of cool reactions coming up very soon. And I am so happy because at the time this recording, gentlemen, epic rap battles of history are coming back. So I get to do some more reactions to those. I love doing those. So first one drops June 14th. I'll be doing mine a couple days after that. So that's coming out soon too. So yeah, all the other social media, you can find me out there. And you also find me and Walter as part of the Necrocasticon podcast, which he's going to tell you about.
Yes, you can find me and Mr. Scott, along with our good friends, writer Thomas Clark, writer Skip Novak, and our wrestling friends, Sullivan Fury, Dan Roberts, on the Necrocasticon every Monday on your favorite podcasting outlet, where we discuss your favorite aspects of horror and metal. It's a lot of fun.
James?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at We Are Pro Wrestling, where I'm currently halfway through Stone Cold Month. I covered the first part from Ringmaster to Bloody Sharpshooter. Yesterday, I uploaded the Road to WrestleMania 14. Next week is going to be the Austin era, from April 98 all the way to when he got ran down by Rikishi at Survivor Series. And then the following week would be his comeback all the way to his final match at WrestleMania 19. You can follow me on Twitter at WAPW_wrestling.
And I can do Ricky's real quick. You can actually follow him on Instagram at, what is it?
Artraman Merogar.
Exactly. And you can find him on the Horseman podcast with myself, as well as our friends Artur Castanha, Hannah Klein, Raphael Fireblade, and new host Pixie, aka Lament Butterfly. We actually just did an episode, fairly recent, of Top 10 Saddest Metal Songs. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the next episode, it'll be our top 10
Bathory songs. That's gonna break everyone's brain. And then of course you can subscribe to me on YouTube, ThrashManiac99. Follow and or subscribe to my Twitch channel, ThrashManiac99. You can follow me on my pretty much dead Twitter at ThrashManiac99. And finally, follow me on Instagram at ThrashManiac_YT. And last but certainly not least, subscribe to the Shadow Cult channel. We're almost to 100 subscribers. If you can get us to 100 subs, maybe we'll consider bringing back Foo for pay-per-views.
We'll talk about considering maybe.
But anyways, speaking of with the Shadow Cult, yeah, the Minecraft stuff's been slow. It's just we're just really busy with other stuff. We'll hopefully get back into finishing up the Treehouse series eventually. But we got album reviews, even though there hasn't been one since I did. But Scott's got one coming up for the new Burning Witches album. I gotta pick an album to talk about soon and all that good stuff. But until next week, horns high, and hey, jackass, I did exploding barbed wire when you were just a stain in your mother's pantyhose.
Oh,
Yes,
Cherry Sponge,
Jackson.
how I love you.
I was about to share another